Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of college basketball. The Boilermakers move on once again as I continue to get to breathe sighs of relief, and they survive in advance to play in the Elite Eight on Sunday in another high-stakes matchup. But without further ado, let's run it. This game ends with a score of Purdue 80, Gonzaga 68. Two physical teams came into this one and battled, with Purdue coming out on top to advance to their sixth Elite Eight as a program and first since 2019 with their electric run with Carson Edwards in that group. Purdue looks great again in this one, and they really took it to Gonzaga in a number of ways. Though this one was a dogfight from the jump, with both teams playing intense physical offense and defense, both teams really refusing to budge for most of the first half. Gonzaga did a pretty good job guarding Edey, all things considered, during the first half as he ended with 11 points, but he really had to fight for those 11. They double-teamed him and dug down on a number of occasions, causing him to get 3 first-half turnovers. But when you do that to Purdue, you risk what they can do to you from the three-point line. While they limited Edey, the Bulldogs gave up 7 threes to Purdue, which was a massive factor of the Boilermakers' success in the first half. The threes were falling for both sides, as Graham Ike actually found himself open a couple of times and knocked down 2 first-half threes of his own, despite those being his 6th and 7th three-pointers of the entire season. Despite Edey not dominating as much as he has for some of this postseason, Purdue still led at the break 40-36. For the first 8 minutes of the second half, it was back and forth with both teams getting buckets. A Fletcher Lawyer layup would break the 4-point game, and from there, Purdue would pick up steam. Purdue really extended their lead with solid defense and a couple of quick hitting buckets, taking their lead from 6-16 in the span of 4 minutes in the middle of the second half. Anton Watson got his 4th foul, sending him to the bench for quite some time and messing up Gonzaga's offensive flow. That would then cause Graham Ike to really be on an island defending Edey, and he picked up 4 fouls within the span of 5 minutes to foul out, with Watson picking up his 5th a couple minutes later for Edey to then foul out the entirety of yet another team's starting front court. From there, it was too little too late as Purdue would kind of coast the rest of the way, bearing the Bulldogs with a healthy dose of Zach Edey. Speaking of Zach Edey, he ends the game with 27 points on 10 of 15 shooting, 7 for 10 from the free throw line, 14 rebounds, and 1 assist. Behind him was Braden Smith with yet again so close to another triple-double. He gets 14 points on 6 of 11 shooting. Nice to see him shoot the ball a little bit better in this one. 2 for 4 from 3, 8 rebounds, and 15 assists, which was a Purdue record for the NCAA tournament. He was absolutely fantastic on the ball, and he really orchestrated pretty much everything for Purdue tonight. And 1 steal as well. For Gonzaga, you've got Graham Ike. He did have a very solid game with 18 points on 8 of 15 shooting. Like I said, he did get those 2 threes, 2 for 4 from the three-point line, 10 rebounds, 1 assist. But of course, he did foul out there in the second half. Behind him, you've got Nolan Hickman with 16 points of his own on 7 of 13 shooting. He was 2 for 7 from 3, so he's a better three-point shooter than he showed in this one, I think, and added on 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. In terms of honorable mentions, Lance Jones put up a very solid performance, which we've been looking to get him back on track more recently, so it was nice to see him score the ball pretty well from various different places. He ended up with 12 points on 5 of 10 shooting, 2 for 6 from 3, 1 rebound, 3 assists, and 1 steal. And then for Gonzaga, you've got Ryan Nembhard, who's been a staple for their team. He ends up with 14 points, but on 6 of 14 shooting, so he definitely would like to shoot the ball a little bit better. 1 for 4 from the three-point line, 2 rebounds, 7 assists, and 1 steal. Some key team points for Purdue. It was scoring without the free throw line. Purdue is one of the best teams in the country at getting to the free throw line and scoring that way, with Zach Edey leading the nation in free throw attempts and free throws made. But Purdue only got to the line 10 times in this game. Interestingly enough, all 10 by Edey, and he made 7 of them. So they had to fight through a physical matchup where fouls weren't being called nearly as often as they were used to, and they found other ways to score. They hit their open threes, they found ways to drive to the basket around the contact, and they'll need more of that if they're going to keep winning against better and better opponents, especially if their refs are going to swallow their whistles similar to how they did in this one. And secondly, limiting turnovers. That's been a big thing for Purdue in a lot of their, impressive victories or key victories throughout the season. Purdue's best offense is simply being able to get a shot out of as many possessions as possible. When your team is that good, if you can get shots that's going to be the best thing you could possibly do. And by keeping themselves under 10 turnovers, they were able to get as many shots as they possibly could, giving themselves more chances for offensive rebounds, even if they didn't make them, which is crucial for a team that crashes the glass as well as Purdue does. For Gonzaga, it was points in the paint. For a team that usually dominates in the paint and loves scoring from down there, they kind of got dwarfed in this one. Against Edey, that's a bit understandable, but they did a good job in the first half of staying pretty much even in that aspect of the game with Purdue, and it wasn't until the second half when Edey really got going inside that Gonzaga just couldn't keep up, especially with Watson and EK getting in foul trouble. They kind of lost their interior presence. Purdue ended up outscoring the Bulldogs 40-26 in the paint, and that's just not a winning recipe for Gonzaga with the way that they typically like to play. Secondly is bench production. Gonzaga really relies on their starters for most of their offensive production, and this game was no different. They only went 7 deep and only got 4 points off the bench from Braden Huff. So when they got into foul trouble in their front court, they couldn't find much of an answer. No one was really feeling it tonight for the Bulldogs. And that combined with some solid defense from Purdue kept a very solid offense under 70 points. But Purdue is on to the Elite Eight for the first time since 2019 and will take on the 2-seed Tennessee Volunteers, another common opponent from the Maui Invitational, ironically enough, at the beginning of the season. And that'll be at 2:20 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. It'll be sure to be another dogfight with the Stars taking the lead as with Dalton Knecht and Zach Edey, but I personally think that the supporting cast will win or lose the game for both teams. As for Gonzaga, another Sweet 16 run ends in disappointment as Mark Few will look to reload once again through recruiting and the transfer portal to keep the Bulldogs in contention in the West Coast Conference and the national stage going forward. But that's all I've got for today. We are narrowing down the field, but the content is still plentiful, with predictions the rest of the way and Purdue recaps as far as this run takes them, and so much more here on Running the Table. So if you like what you're seeing, let us know and give us some predictions of your own. As always, we sleep in May. But until then, like and subscribe for more college basketball content. And until next time, I'm out.